Everyone, I'm Kevin Hewitt, and most of you here today probably already know about our little group, but for those of you that haven't, a number of years ago, ICEA's cost community realized that there needed to be an opportunity to explore a difference in our folks that are here. Original equipment manufacturers happen to face challenges that are different from those employed by the government folks within our cost community. And in order to identify, acknowledge, and address these challenges, ICEA and a number of us OEM volunteers formed the OEM COG, which stands for the Original Equipment Manufacturers Collaborative Opportunities Group. Our mission is to create a dialogue between ICEA and our OEM members and explore ways that ICEA can provide support solutions tailored to our OEM community and provide a forum where members from various OEM organizations can communicate and share best practices. And one way that we do that is by presenting webinars like this one here for you guys today. If you like what you hear, you're interested in any of our past webinars, you can find them at iceaonline.com/OEMcog. This one will be posted along with all of our previous ones. And now, moving on, today we've got a very special presentation of the paper that won the ICEA Minneapolis Workshop Best Paper Award in Trending Topics back in 2024. This is by Patrick Casey, whose enthusiasm for mathematics and research helped shape his career in cost analysis at Quantech Services. With 6 years of impactful DoD experience, he has supported aircraft modifications, cloud transformation efforts, CI/CD pipeline programs, and developed various training resources. He also holds certifications as an AWS cloud practitioner, safe lean agilist, and an IFPUG function point specialist. Without further ado, I'll turn this over to Mr. Patrick Casey so he can present ChatGPT Friend or Foe, meet your new engineering SME.
Thank you very much to Megan and the OEM COG. Thank you very much, ICEA, for this opportunity, and a big thank you to Quantech for continuing to support my work here. So like it was stated, I am very proud of this presentation and what it's been able to do for the community and how often I've been able to present this. So big thank you to everyone. I have won an award at the Minneapolis ICEA presentation. I did get a chance to present this in London at the SCAF ICEA conference. And every time I present this, I feel like my LinkedIn grows. So I figured why not just drop my QR code here. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, ask me any questions there, or during the presentation, like Megan said, I can see the chat. So feel free to ask anything there. So before I even talk about the title of this presentation, I do want to talk about the genesis of this whole presentation. It was created for the ICEA Professional Development Workshop in Minneapolis in 2024. So that means I started working on this about a year and a half ago. As many of you know, a lot has changed in the world of AI. However, as you'll see in the outline of the presentation, I don't think this presentation has changed so much so that I can't be presenting it any further. The history of large language models and generative pre-training transformers stays the same. The tips and tricks and cautions on how we use it has not been changed. I think the biggest impact over the past year and a half would be to the use cases that I'm going to illustrate in this presentation. They were created using ChatGPT's 4 version, which is now about a year old or so. But what I would recommend doing now that the AI has evolved so much is, if you're inspired by this presentation, to go home and recreate these use cases on whatever AI you have available. There are many more options out there. We do have some now that are for government use, so I think it opens up all sorts of doors to recreate these use cases in new and exciting ways. And if you do have success with these use cases that I didn't, I'd definitely love to hear about it, and please reach out. So with that, I am going to go off camera and jump into the presentation. So ChatGPT Friend or Foe, meet your new engineering SME. So the first thing I want to talk about is the title. So ChatGPT, is it a friend or is it a foe? Hopefully you'll agree with me by the end of this presentation that it is neither. Like most technology, electricity, the car, nuclear power, it could be used as good or bad. I believe ChatGPT is the same kind of technology. It could be used for good, just like it could be used for bad, and it's all about how we utilize the technology. Meet your new engineering SME. This is not meant to scare any engineers out there, any subject matter experts. As you'll see in the use cases, I do posit that this tool could be utilized as an engineering pre-solicitation resource. However, I will repeat it multiple times in the presentation. I do not think this is going to be replacing anybody's job. So the presentation is broken up into 3 sections. We have an intro and background, setting the stage, some history of ChatGPT, and then we get into a whole bunch of use cases. The second half, so to speak, of the presentation is focused on tips, tricks, some warnings, and some information about the way forward. All the images in this slide deck were actually created by ChatGPT. So OpenAI owns multiple different AI offerings, ChatGPT being their large language model. They also operate DALL-E, which is an image creation offering. So for each of these slides, I actually just took a screenshot and said, can I have an image for this slide? Or can I have a cartoon image for this slide? And so that's what you will see. I did not create the images in this slide deck. So a little bit of setting the stage, a little bit of background about myself. I am not an AI expert. I'm a cost analyst who is interested in emerging technology, who is lucky enough to work in branches where AI is highly utilized, and for a company who values education and creating resources like this to empower our team. This is not an ad for ChatGPT. So as stated, I did create a companion paper to go along with this presentation that does outline some of the other AI offerings that were comparable at this time. This presentation does focus on ChatGPT. However, I've used that the most. I think it's a very powerful tool for very specific scenarios. However, at this point, I have used a dozen other AI offerings and would highly recommend, just getting used to being able to play in any AI environment and getting used to, prompt engineering and AI output and how it actually works. I'll mention a bunch of times, I believe AI should be used with caution. I do think its development should be regulated and highly monitored. And this presentation does focus on, the current model's capabilities, so current as of when this presentation was created about a year ago, and stays away from the more subjective what ifs and philosophical debates. So I would love to talk about Roku's Basilisk with you offline. However, we don't get into that here. So I have a few intro questions. Typically these work better in person, but for here, just feel free to stretch your arm at home. I'll believe you are all doing it. So who here has heard of ChatGPT? That question typically gets the most amount of hands. That should be a good amount of people. They have been around for quite a while. It's hard to turn on the news without hearing about ChatGPT, OpenAI. So how many people have used ChatGPT? So this could be fewer people. I do find that some people are still, even to this day, hesitant to go into ChatGPT, the free version, and start prompting and seeing how that works. Has anyone made their life or work easier with ChatGPT? That used to be fewer people, but I start to see more and more people raise their hand. When I presented this at the DoD CAS in Virginia, just in December, about half the audience raised their hand, which is great to see. If you have some novel use cases, I would love to hear how you're utilizing it and what you're doing to make things easier. And lastly, who's afraid of ChatGPT? This potentially is many people. Again, this was a lot of people. Most people raised their hand at the beginning when I first started presenting this presentation. And by the time I started presenting this, last December, a lot less people are afraid of it, but there are still some people who may be afraid of ChatGPT. So it looks like I am presenting slides. I can see slides. I do have confirmation other people can, so I will continue. Sorry, Hector, maybe try resetting. So ChatGPT, where does that come from? Obviously, I mentioned them a few times. So that ChatGPT was created by OpenAI. So they're considered a trailblazer in the AI realm, probably one of the largest companies that are doing large language models and other various types of generative AI. So ChatGPT specifically is a generative pre-trained transformer. So we're going to talk about each of those words a little bit more. So generative is pretty straightforward, generates text. Pre-trained, it means that it was trained on reinforcement learning from human feedback. So to this day, when you use ChatGPT, it'll give you a thumbs up, a thumbs down, which it uses to gauge how well it's answering. That's direct human feedback. But despite its sophistication, it's just critical to remember that ChatGPT is just mimicking human-like text. It does not know training specifics. It was just trained to respond in a human-like manner. So the GPT and ChatGPT. So this next slide has a video from a YouTube called 3 Blue, 1 Brown. So this audio should come through. I will warn it may be loud or quiet depending on your audio settings. So that will start in about a minute here. If you can't hear it, the transcription is to the right. And without further ado.
What is Hitler plus Italy minus Germany? This came up in a full video that I did dissecting what happens inside large language models. You see, when tools like ChatGPT process text, the first thing they do is subdivide it into little pieces, and they associate each piece with a large vector, some long list of numbers. This is called an embedding of that piece of text, and it's helpful to imagine these embedding vectors as directions in some very high-dimensional space, even if we struggle to concretely visualize anything more than 3 dimensions. Models that learn to embed words as vectors like this often encode meaning into the directions of this high-dimensional space. If you take the difference between the embeddings of man and woman, and you add that to the embedding of uncle, you get a vector very close to the embedding of aunt. If you take the embedding of Italy minus Germany, and you add it to the embedding of Hitler, you get something very close to the embedding of Mussolini. It's as if the model learned to associate some directions in this high-dimensional space with Italianness, and others with World War II Axis leaders.
So I think that's a really important video, and I think that's a really neat video to show what ChatGPT and other large language models do in their black box, right? We tend to think of it as some, giant mishmash of neural networks and equations, but really at the end of the day, it's doing a very, very large regression, linear regression in billions to trillions of parameters, but it is just making connections. It is just generating text based on this transformer technology. So it was a groundbreaking class of language processing in AI systems, and it is the basis of ChatGPT, creating these contextual relationships between words and text. The AI itself was initially pre-trained on a vast corpus of internet text. So that is how it created these initial contextual relationships. And the model was trained to predict the next word in a sentence, very similar to the way we predict the cost of the next production line item, enabling these AIs to generate text that is remarkably human-like. Again, very human-like. It is just mimicking, parroting. The pre-training phase is followed by a fine-tuning stage where it's optimized to perform its performance, and that's kind of what we've seen in the most recent iterations of ChatGPT 4.0 and IO, all of these that are trained to be better at very specific tasks like coding, image generation, audio generation, so on and so forth. So a little bit of information about the progression of ChatGPT 1 through 4. So this is actually from an article from the Washington Post, seeing how AI progressed over the years, starting with ChatGPT 1 and going through 4. So they gave all of the iterations a prompt, and it was the same one, a clever name for a play about dinosaurs is. So starting in 2018, OpenAI's GPT-1 would have given you the result. To quote the most brilliant of examples, who can say for sure they weren't aliens or aliens or aliens? And it keeps going, and it is not a very good name for a play about dinosaurs. 2019, ChatGPT 2 is released. You see Dinosaur Brawl. That might be decent. But then the large language model taxon, which can be viewed in the player's perspective, starts with Mr. D, a dino hunter. It starts to go on a tangent, gets a little distracted. Fast forward 4 years to 2023, ChatGPT 3 comes out, and you get something that is usable. Dynamite, the Mesozoic extravaganza. I would see that play. And it only gets better from there. Maybe you want a musical, Jurassic Jamboree, or maybe you are making a comedy about dinosaurs and want to go with Jurassic Jest. So what is making ChatGPT smarter? What is making it better? Why are we getting these better answers? Well, it all comes back to those connections, the parameters, how good it's all about input in and input out. So this is a graph from Leffold Aschenbrenner. So this was normalizing to ChatGPT 4, calling that a smart high schooler. They put ChatGPT 2 at about a preschooler, ChatGPT 3 at about an elementary schooler, and they're projecting, you know, as models go on in time, they might get even smarter, become an automated researcher, engineer. So again, this is just effective compute, but what is driving that compute? Well, it's the parameters that these models are running off of. So this first graph was published in 2022. So this only goes to January of 2021, but this shows you some of the first iterations of OpenAI and other models similar to it. So you can see ChatGPT 1 at the very bottom left had about 110 million parameters. And remember, a parameter could be words, it could be the connections between the words. ChatGPT 2 had 1.5 billion, GPT-3, 175 billion. And we can start increasing this in time. You know, we can go out to February of 2024, and you can start to see the AI offerings start to get much denser. There's a lot more AI offerings as time go on, and a lot of these offerings start having over a billion, over 100 billion parameters. ChatGPT 3 having 175 billion parameters. They are predicting ChatGPT 4 should have somewhere around 52 trillion parameters. And that is all having an effect on these large language models and how much they quote unquote understand, what they can process. So this is a graph of large language models results on a massive multitask language understanding benchmark test. It's 57 different sections, each looking at a particular subject, around 1,600 questions. If you get about a 90% on a single section, you're considered an expert in that one section. So this is their results on every section. And they're starting to come close to, you know, expert human performance. So we're starting to get very large, very smart AIs that know a lot about a lot of information. So some halftime questions. It looks like some of you were able to use the hand raise in the chat, so that's always fun. Feel free to continue doing that. These are a few more questions for the audience here. Who has had to rely on engineering input to estimate the cost of something? Whether it be your work breakdown structure, technical specifications, what could be analogous systems or programs. In my line of work, engineers are typically the most important person that we deal with, you know, second to PMs and all of our leadership. They're the people that give us the inputs to our cost estimates, the people that, you know, we have to sit down with and hash through all of the numbers, quantities, durations. So how easy was it for you to get the information that you needed? Did you have a dedicated engineer? In my experience, you know, engineers are in high demand, short supply, and are very busy and usually spread very thin. So most of our cost teams don't have a dedicated engineer. Our programs will, but they're supporting every program engineering effort, not just the cost analysis team. Were follow-up meetings necessary to obtain all the info that you needed? How much time did that back and forth take? Typically, you know, it takes more than one meeting to get all the information. And can your engineers explain the same topic in multiple ways without getting annoyed? Again, engineers are highly sought after in our career field. And so the reason I ask these questions is because the rest of these use cases do posit that ChatGPT and large language models could provide valuable insight into various engineering concepts due to its training on a wide range of text, including technical documents, which could make it a virtual engineering subject matter expert pre-solicitation tool. So its ability to process and generate language could help in work breakdown structures, potentially selecting analogous programs and projects, and explaining specifications of hardware and applications of various hardware items. So however, I'm going to say this at the end of each use case, keep in mind it will not replace a human expert. It can provide valuable insight. It is a great starting place for information. However, that will not do the work of an engineer for you. So the first use case, work breakdown structure consideration. So the prompt that I utilized was, please provide a list of the most important WBS elements to estimate when generating a government cost estimate for a new fighter jet. I gave it a little bit of help here, use Mil Standard 881 WBS. Again, this is a great plug. If this is an interesting prompt or response, definitely try this on the latest AI offerings. Brandon in the chat mentioned Nipper GPT. That is one of the couple IL45 level offerings that we have now. So if you are interested in any of those offerings, I do have contacts for AFL CMC HN division. We have some AI working groups there. Happy to put anyone in contact with the right people there. So back to this prompt. When we're generating a WBS, it does give us a pretty good outline of work breakdown structure for a fighter jet. It tells us the main categories for system development, production, deployment, sustainment, program management, and it does give us a breakout of some of those lower level applicable child level work breakdown items. And it goes so far as to say each of these elements would need a cost estimate accounting for labor, materials, equipment, software, and the cost estimate should also factor in risk and uncertainty. So it does seem like the AI models has taken some cost estimating training, which is great. And it does tell you to remember cost estimating for such a complex task is iterative, so estimates should be updated and refined as more information becomes available. So a great plug for our jobs and what we do continuously as cost estimators to align our estimates. So this is a great start, some great definitions. We could continue this conversation with ChatGPT and ask more about some of these specific elements. But again, it did not give us a cost estimate for a fighter jet. Use case 2 would be for hardware specifications. So this prompt is assuming you were sitting in a meeting and your engineer said, yeah, we're going to need a bunch of PowerEdge R250s. You know nothing about that hardware and didn't want to use Google. So we go to ChatGPT and we say, hey, can you provide a range of costs for buying one of these Dell PowerEdge R250s? ChatGPT does go through and it does have the ability to use internet search. So it can go through and says, sure, here's an entry-level configuration at about $1,200. Here's a mid-range configuration at about $2,400. Here's a custom build at about $600. And it does provide some links for reference. Now, would I take this information and plug these 3 values into my cost estimate with a triangular distribution, an average of 1,200? Definitely not. I'm not recommending using this as a primary source of information in any way. However, what this does for me is when I read these configurations, I can see that the first one says it includes an Intel Pentium processor, 8 gigs of RAM, and a terabyte SATA hard drive. The mid-range has a different processor, more RAM, a solid state hard drive. So all of a sudden I can now start to piece together that, well, I should probably be asking my engineers what kind of processor it has, how much RAM and hard drive it needs, so that I can drill down to the specifics of the PowerEdge R250 we're purchasing and get an even better price point for that hardware. So a little bit better than Googling is debatable, but still a good start and some good information from pretty quick source here. Third use case would be looking for some sort of analogous program. So this really starts to show some of the limitations of the commercial AI offerings, where you start to ask about some analogous programs in the Air Force for a fighter jet, provide specifics about the programs, and it starts to. There is public information about the F-35, F-22, B-21, and it starts to give you some information about those. It also mentions the KC-46 and B-21. And it even goes so far as to say there are various technology factors, size and capability, development and procurement timeline, considerations that you would want to adjust to make your analogy work. Development and procurement, inflation and labor rates, industrial base. And it finishes off with a very nice, remember, analogy-based cost and estimating is an art as much as a science, and it requires a deep understanding of both the new program and programs being used as analogies. So a very nice finishing sentence here to tie it all up. It gives you some factors that you would want to ask your engineering subject matter expert about. It gives you some fighter jets you might want to ask your engineering subject matter expert about. But again, this does not stop you. This does not replace your engineering expert. You will still need to talk to them about what your program is developing, how similar it is to some of these other programs, and then how do you adjust based on the various factors. So the next use case is the most fun. This is recipe creation. So this is probably how I use ChatGPT the most. I like making dinner, and I don't have many recipes in my recipe book. And I don't like going online and having to read through 10 pages of somebody's life story to get a recipe. So typically I'll just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'd like to make a meatloaf for dinner, provide a delicious recipe. I have a pound of ground meat. ChatGPT graciously, gives me the meat mixture. It tells me how to make the glaze, what temperature the oven needs to be at, how to form the meatloaf, how to bake it, and everything I need in order to make a delicious meatloaf. However, more often than not, I am missing ingredients. So I will go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I don't have breadcrumbs, but I do have some stale bread. Can I still have meatloaf? And ChatGPT will take that as a challenge and say, of course, stale bread's an excellent substitute for breadcrumbs. Take those breadcrumbs, soak them, reintegrate them into the recipe. And stale bread used in this way could even result in a moister meatloaf than using dry breadcrumbs. So learned something new and made a delicious meatloaf in the process. Last use case we have here, maybe the scariest for what we do at our jobs. In this title, it says it was a beta feature. It was at the time of creation. Now it is something that is just baked into, I believe, even the free version of ChatGPT. It does have the ability to create and manipulate Python and SQL. So in this use case, I did take an Excel spreadsheet that was originated from a Power Pivot for Dummies book. I was learning Power Pivot at the time. I had this Excel file. So I uploaded it to ChatGPT and said, utilizing the attached Excel, please provide some interesting and insightful graphs. I told it there's 3 tabs that need to be linked, give it a little push in the right direction. And that's all I told it. So the first thing it does is it loads the file and it actually inspects the contents to determine the best way to visualize the data. It sees that there's 3 sheets in the file, a tab of invoice details, a tab of customers, and a tab of invoice headers. It then loads each sheet and inspects the first few rows to understand the structure. That's where it can tell you what the columns are in each tab. It then can see that there are a few columns that have the same name, which it then uses joins to connect those 2 tables. It even says we can potentially explore the following: revenue per invoice, total revenue per customer, distribution of customers, and revenue trend. It performs the joins, and then it creates some visuals. We get a bar graph for total revenue by customer. We get another bar graph for distribution of customers by country, and we get a nice line graph for monthly revenue trend. It summarizes the findings and says, would you like to explore any other aspects of the data, or do you have any further questions? So this does do a lot of work, and it does do this very quickly. This only took a few minutes. However, again, would I then take these graphs and put them in a presentation for leadership? Most definitely not. I would want to recreate these charts on my own. I would want to verify that it wasn't injecting data in some way. And I would want to, just confirm that these graphs were actually the data I was using. So definitely wouldn't just copy paste right into my final presentation, but it can do some of that data analysis, some of that data visualization right in vanilla ChatGPT. Gabriel has a question about permissions to get onto something like Nipper GPT. I would definitely talk to your FSO security office about anything Nipper related, getting onto those. I can definitely get you in contact with our security at AFL-CMC if you would like. So deciphering the AI enigma. So we just talked a lot about how we could use AI and being very critical about its output. We can get good information out of AI, but it's all what we do with that information. So looking at its output does require a discerning eye. It doesn't provide sources for a lot of its statements. Its knowledge is based on a diverse set of training, and it generates responses based on those patterns and information in the data, not necessarily on external databases or live internet sources. Again, this was based on ChatGPT 4. There are newer versions that can do some internet searching, but a lot of the times when you ask it to provide a citation, it will still try and fabricate the citation based on what a citation should look like, not necessarily copying and pasting from the article into citation builder or something like that. So it's very crucial to validate any critical information provided by ChatGPT independently. I typically recommend we utilize ChatGPT the same way Wikipedia was utilized. That was coming out when I was in school. So teachers said, you can't rely on Wikipedia, you can't cite Wikipedia. So what did we do? We would go to Wikipedia and we would scroll to the bottom of a page where it would give you the references to source material, which could be referenced and typically was paraphrased in the Wikipedia page. So ChatGPT, other large language models are a great tool to provide initial guidance, but I would not recommend them as a primary source of information. There are a lot of potholes and limitations of ChatGPT. So one of the more glaring ones might be visible in this picture here. Potholes on the AI expressive way, little limitations of ChatGPT. A lot of AI models are unimodal, meaning they are really good at generating text or generating images. However, when you try and combine text and image, it has no way of spell checking what is in an image. It knows that these signs should have words. However, it doesn't know that Seifert is not a word. There are some other limitations in its inability to access real-time specific cost data, which is something we would need an AI model to be able to do if we wanted to utilize it to provide cost estimates. They are making some headway in that space where it can start to, like I said, search Google and Bing for results. And it's always important to remember that AI can occasionally produce incorrect, nonsensical answers. There's all sorts of stories coming out about AI producing someone's obituary and thinking that that was real. It's very sensitive to input phrasing. On two different computers, you could ask it the same question and get slightly different answers, or use different punctuation and get different answers. And of course, for safety measures, we'll talk, there's a whole slide on safety measures next. This bullet is more on the refusal to generate inappropriate content. It still sometimes can respond to harmful instructions and will inherently, in certain cases, exhibit biased behavior just due to the training data set being only what's available on the internet. So you're always going to be biased by what can get on the internet, what is out there. Furthermore, for security concerns, we all work, government or government adjacent. We all deal with proprietary information, sensitive information. So make sure when you're using ChatGPT and other commercial large language models and AI offerings, I would not recommend putting anything even close to CUI, confidential, proprietary, anything in there, because right on all of their websites, they are typically told that they are utilizing prompts and answers as training. So anything you put in there is free game for the AI to utilize and potentially for others to gain access to. So if sensitive data is used as a prompt input, it could potentially be exposed to unauthorized individuals or entities. On the other end, it's also worth noting that models can be used in ways that could potentially be harmful, such as generating misinformation or manipulative content. The training set could be hacked and injected with 2 + 2 = 5. And now all of a sudden, the AI believes 2 + 2 = 5. And who knows what that could do. So again, always going to recommend careful and responsible usage of ChatGPT. The rapper Ice Cube doesn't like AI. There's actually a lot of artists, both musically and artistically out there that visually, that are very much against AI due to the fact that their work is being utilized to create some of this AI work. So far as they've gone so far as to, in April 2023, creating a Drake song called Heart on My Sleeve. It emerged on SoundCloud and YouTube. It got mentions in TMC and Daily Mail. However, it was actually composed of multiple pre-existing elements and the AI-generated voice of Drake. So other artists have had similar music made using AI, and it just opens up a Pandora's box of copyright and legal considerations. So a lot of interesting stuff to come out there. And again, like I said, definitely think that further use should be regulated in some way. One of the more interesting things you can do with ChatGPT these days is have a full dynamic conversation with the AI model, maintaining context over multiple turns of conversation, allowing for dynamic dialogues. It's capable of understanding or responding to follow-up questions. There are some AI models out there that are actually trained and engineered to ask their own follow-up questions sometimes. ChatGPT is not so great at that unless you tell it to. But it is getting better at that, and you can ask it yourself. What would you like to know more that would make your answer better? So while engaging in conversation, it's essential to provide enough context for each new question to ensure a relevant response. And just because again, the AI model is always going to find the path of least resistance to an answer and try and give you the best mimicking answer it can, rather than asking clarifying questions when faced with ambiguous queries. So that kind of brings up the topic of prompt engineering. I think that's a big buzzword that's been floating around, coming out quite a bit. There are a lot of tips and tricks and engineering tricks that you can use to get the most out of AI and what you're doing with AI. So using things like explain like I'm 5, explain quantum mechanics like I'm 5, explain this like I'm in high school, rephrasing your question, asking the model to think step by step or debate the pros and cons can all get you a better answer out of the AI, and always being more specific and telling it what kind of answer you're looking for can always shape the result in unique and interesting ways. However, just keep in mind that these techniques may not always work, and you should apply them judiciously based on the task at hand. So where is ChatGPT going? So already ChatGPT 5 has been announced. They keep pushing it out. Like I said, it could be close to around 50 trillion different parameters. They are working on other AI offerings like Sora, which is a full video generation model. Very interested to play around with that, but it is currently behind the $200 a month paywall, so not there yet. So just keep in mind that it's imperative that we stay curious while also being cautious and analytical, right? We're being able to generate text, video, audio, even full live motion video. So future data sources, news, art, may require an even more critical eye to determine if what you're looking at is real or was fabricated or created by AI. So lastly, I'm always going to advocate for utilizing a tool instead of being replaced by it. I do think AI is very powerful. I do think it has a lot of novel applications, but at this point in this juncture, I do not think it's replacing anyone's job. I'm not even convinced it's making everyone's job easier at this point, but I do think there are some novel use cases, and I do think we're starting to see how we can really utilize AI in various ways. So a summary here, I do believe that ChatGPT presents a significant advance in AI language models. It's not without its limitations and potential pitfalls. Its potential as an engineering subject matter expert and a tool for cost estimation and analysis is substantial, yet it's not going to replace human judgment. It's not going to be the one making the final decisions. I do believe that'll always be up to humans. There are bunch of potential security concerns regarding, the sensitivity of data put into the AI models and the training data. So just make sure you're employing a thoughtful and responsible approach to using the model. But nevertheless, with careful use, any of those AI models, not just ChatGPT, can be a powerful tool for providing initial guidance and insight across a wide range of topics. And as AI technology continues to evolve, it is going to be fascinating to see how these models develop and what new opportunities and challenges they bring, right? So we mentioned Nipper GPT, but there's all sorts of other AI offerings, Camo GPT, Ask Sage, Game Changer, Actbot that are, being utilized in all sorts of unique and interesting ways across the Air Force and DoD in general. So very excited to see how that continues to evolve. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with here is Pepperoni HugSpot, 100% AI created TV commercial. So everything in this video is AI made, not by myself, by Pizza Later, the creator, who said they definitely wasted 3 hours of their life making this video. Everything is AI, from the voiceover to the video and images, and was assembled in a program called After Effects. USA Today got a hold of it and said the pizza commercial is cursed and terrifying the internet. And Business Insider said that this shows the AI technology still has a long way to go.
Are you ready for best pizza of life? Bring friends down to Pepperoni HugSpot. Our chefs make pizza with heart and special touch. Cheese, pepperoni, vegetable, and more secret things. Need delivery? Pizzas come fast. Knock knock, who's there? Pizza magic. Eat Pepperoni HugSpot pizza. Your tummy say thank you. Your mouth say, Pepperoni HugSpot. It's like family, but with more cheese.
And that is all I have for you. So I appreciate everyone's time. And again, if there are any questions, feel free to utilize the chat or reach out to me via LinkedIn or through Quantech Services or AFL-CMC-HN. There is a question. ChatGPT is very polite now. Is there a possibility that it could become a bully? So that's a great question. They have actually implemented some safeguards to make sure that it answers in a PC way. They do make sure that it isn't giving angry, egregious answers. You can ask it to give you angry answers, and it will. However, it is really due to the training, the input data. A lot of the input data is not aggressive and not in that tone, so it doesn't respond in that tone. There are some examples of AI out there being trained on very specific, sets of data that have a certain tone and it responding in that way. So that is something that I do think we'll need to, keep in mind as AI models become more common. So one of the things that I think will happen with AI is that, right now we're seeing AI get larger and larger and larger, uh, trillions of parameters. That takes a lot of money, that takes a lot of compute, that takes a lot of energy in order to create that model, to train that model. So I think those kind of models are going to be few and far between. What we're going to see an emergence of is smaller models that are trained on a more specific data set and have a more specific use case. And then with that, we're going to have to be more more thoughtful about the training data so that we don't have things like that a bully AI that's been trained on aggressive text or something like that and only answers as a drill sergeant would, so to speak. No offense to any drill sergeants out there. Great question. Yeah, happy to answer any other questions at any other time, but appreciate everyone and thank you very much.
Don't know if you spotted it, but we just got a good one coming in about misinformation, disinformation. What do you think about that?
Right, yeah, Carol Deckers, thank you very much. So we used to have World Book and Encyclopedia Britannica. I've used those as well. But today it's as if children are learning misinformation, disinformation is truth. What can we as parents, grandparents, friends, family do to guide our kids to find real information with so much AI influence and few guardrails? That's a great question, right? And I do think it all comes back to teaching children what AI is, right? We had to when I was a child, we had to be taught what Wikipedia was, that it was a collection of information that was input by real people, that that could be anyone, that didn't have to be an expert on the subject, and that was what you were going to get when you went to Wikipedia. So I think it's just as important to educate, children who are using AI that it's just a tool. It's just going to be a parrot mimicking what it thinks the best answer is. Is that going to be original? Is that going to be useful? Is that going to get you to the solution? No, it might be my mathematics teacher hat coming out, but the reason I always told every student that they needed to learn math, no matter what their degree was because you need that critical thinking. Utilizing AI as a tool shouldn't take away that critical thinking of, is this information, like you said, real or not? It's so I definitely think it all is all in education, early education on AI and how we use it. I, I was always against teachers saying no calculator in the classroom because that's a tool that as adults we now have access to. We all now have one in our phone. I don't agree that telling students they can't use AI is the right course of action for the same reason. It's going to be something they utilize, and if they don't know how to utilize it properly, like you said, it could be a detriment in increased misinformation, disinformation being disseminated. So great point. And again, I do think it just comes back to early education. Patrick Ransom, the meatloaf turned out delicious. Highly recommend soaked breadcrumbs integrated into a meatloaf. Yes.
I mean, soaked breadcrumbs, couple of saltines. There's a whole bunch. Oh, there we go. Here's one more. I thought he wore you guys out, but we got one more coming in, Bill.
Love it. So we have Bill Barfield. The use of AI takes staggering amounts of energy, such as provided by the massive growth of data centers. Is a cost benefit of AI benefits versus energy needed being studied? That's a great question. I do not know of one off the top of my head. I'm sure there are cost benefit analysis studies out there. If anyone knows of any, I would love to see them. My experience is with, like I said, AFL, CMC, the HN branch. We do have some cost analysts that I could get you in contact with that may have some better information about that. But right now, the genesis of how the government's using AI is very new. So I'm not privy to any of those cost benefit studies, but I'm sure they're out there. Because like you said, the commercial studies are out there that it is taking more and more energy, more and more compute and store, more and more real estate. So there are real concerns if the government and or commercial entities are looking to recreate something that has been done on that scale. But again, that's why I think that a lot of the future AI offerings are not going to be trying to recreate so much, though those staggering scales that are starting to exponentially ramp up. But again, utilize those in unique ways, maybe utilize a subset of that. But yeah, if anyone has any information about the cost benefit analysis, feel free to send it my way and I can disseminate it appropriately. I'd love to. I'm just as interested, Mr. Barfield. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to call it then at this point. Thanks everybody for such a lively conversation and for bringing all these questions. Thank you, Patrick, for giving us one more encore performance of your 2024 award-winning paper. Thank you, Kevin and the OEM COG for helping put this together. And for those of you who missed it, or if you have some friends you'd like to share it with around this time tomorrow, the recording and the slides will be up on the OEM COG page and on ICEA's YouTube channel. So in the meantime, I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Thank you so much. Take care.